Ah, yes, action movies. Is there anything they can't do? Well, actually, there's a lot they can't do, but they still rock anyway. Anyway, here's my highly subjective and biased list of my top 50 favorite action films of all time. This is strictly my opinion, and your list is going to be very different. I'd like to apologize for just including the posters of the motion pictures chosen here as the only visuals for this video, but I wanted to keep things legal, so no ripped footage. First, I'd like to say that I have used a fairly loose definition of the term action film, with war, western, science fiction, and crime movies with reasonable amounts of physical action making the cut. Not every film that contained action was eligible, though. It had to have a fairly substantial amount of it. Also, there's some bundling, with movies that happen to be part of the same series being put in the same entry together if they're back-to-back on the list. This is how my favorites look at the moment. Things could change in the future. Without further ado, here's the list with spoiler-free reviews. Number 50, The Machete Duology. These two intentionally campy actioners are about Mexican Avenger Machete, played by Danny Trejo, who dukes it out with the bad guys with an assortment of bladed weapons. They're wildly entertaining spoof pictures that feature all-star casts and don't take themselves seriously in the slightest. The best of the duo is 2013's Machete Kills, which takes the Unchained out of control. Anything goes. Did they really just go there? Nature, the first film, and takes it to a hilariously extreme degree. 2010's Machete is also off the deep end, resulting in a highly entertaining experience, but it's not quite as toys in the attic as the sequel. Let's hope that Machete Kills Again in space gets made and completes the trilogy. Number 49, The Adventures of Tintin. Based on the adventures of Belgian comic strip hero reporter Tintin, played by Jamie Bell, this animated Steven Spielberg-directed action-adventure tale is chock full of energy and wonder. It's also much more family-friendly than just about any of the other films on this list, although there is some blood in one scene. Here, Tintin with his dog Snowy find themselves on a treasure hunt after purchasing a model ship. The action scenes are manic and the characters are, of course, classic. It really gives you a chance to be a kid again. If I had to find one fault with it, it would have to be the fact that the character of Captain Haddock, played by Andy Serkis, is reduced to a buffoon. Oh well, still a dynamite movie. Number 48, Hacksaw Ridge. This is the true story of war hero Desmond Doss, played by Andrew Garfield, an American soldier during World War II who refused to pick up a gun but served gallantly at the Battle of Okinawa. Directed by Mel Gibson, this extra gory biopic takes its time to establish Doss as a character, letting the audience sympathize with him and get to know his values. The battle scenes in the second half are fearsome, although they aren't quite as realistic as they think they are, as they frequently stray into straight action movie territory. Still, Hacksaw Ridge is a hair-raising tribute to a real-life hero and deserves to be watched. Number 47, the first two Star Wars prequels. Oh, I can feel the bile-filled comments being typed up already. This is bound to be the most controversial entry on my list. Remember, this is my list, not yours. Listen, these movies were an important part of my childhood, and so nostalgia is going to affect my judgment. No, these aren't exactly the most well-crafted piece of cinema ever released, but I enjoy them, in spite of their flaws. I appreciate the world building and imagination in these pictures, even if they lay on the CGI mighty thick at times. The John Williams musical scores are superior, and the action scenes are elaborate. Yes, the midi-chlorians are dumb, and the acting and dialogue have a tendency to be stuffy, but for the most part, these pictures aren't boring. And that counts for a lot in my book. 1999's Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, is the better of the two, partially thanks to being less reliant on abysmal CGI and having less romance. 2002's Star Wars Episode 2, Attack of the Clones, probably has more action, but the romance scenes are dire, and Anakin Skywalker, played by Hayden Christensen, never really ingratiates himself to the audience. Number 46, Extreme Prejudice. In this modern-day Western, two childhood friends find themselves on opposite sides of the law. One, played by Nick Nolte, is now a Texas Ranger, and the other, played by Powers Booth, is a drug lord in Mexico. What could go wrong? Directed by Walter Hill, this is an exciting actioner that serves up the goods. The action scenes, particularly the final shootout, are skillfully made, and the star-studded cast makes an impression. During my first viewing, I felt that the presence of the Special Forces Commando team was a distraction from the real plot. But upon watching it a second time, I've gotten used to them and don't really mind their inclusion in the flick. Number 45, Westworld. One day, two dudes, played by Richard Benjamin and James Brolin, decide to visit an adult-themed amusement park that simulates the Wild West and that is inhabited by lifelike robots. Westworld is a unique genre bender that throws you headfirst into its world. The possibilities seem endless. Yul Brynner is the real standout here, playing the Western gunslinger version of the Terminator. He's just so cool! The special effects are fine and the pacing's pretty quick. Oh yeah, it's also directed by Michael Crichton. If this sounds remotely interesting to you, check it out. Number 44, Saving Private Ryan. With Saving Private Ryan, director Steven Spielberg managed to put some of the most intensely realistic depictions of wartime combat ever on the big screen. They make you want to take cover underneath your couch. Anyway, this reverent World War II movie's about a squad of American soldiers sent deep into enemy-infested territory after the D-Day landings in northern France to locate a sole U.S. trooper played by Matt Damon, whose brothers were all recently killed. The lengthy battle and combat sequences are harrowing. The whole film is an emotionally exhausting experience. That being said, the lack of development that many of the supporting characters get keeps this iconic picture from getting ranked higher on the list. However, Saving Private Ryan is still a must-see whether you're a fan of war movies or not. Number 43, Full Metal Jacket. Stanley Kubrick co-writes and directs this dramedy about American Marines trying to survive boot camp so they can serve in the battle to retake Hue during the Vietnam War's Tet Offensive. Dark comedy abounds, with the drill sergeant played by R. Lee Ermey stealing the show every scene he's in. He's really a force of nature here. Full Metal Jacket is one of those movies that makes you laugh as it disturbs you at the same time. Many people criticize the film's second half, set in South Vietnam, for not being as riveting as the first half, set in boot camp. I disagree. While the first half might be a bit better, I still find the stuff that takes place in the war zone to be impossible to turn away from. Number 42, The Terminator. The Terminator is one of those movies that gets your heart racing from the very first few frames. The plot is a bit complicated to explain, but it's about a cyborg assassin played by Arnold Schwarzenegger, who's sent back in time to murder the woman, played by Linda Hamilton, who will eventually give birth to the leader of the human faction in the coming human versus robot war. It's a bleak, atmospheric, sci-fi action thriller that sometimes resembles a horror film. It's intense, and the special effects are fun to watch too. They didn't have an unlimited budget making this picture, so it's remarkable to see what they managed to pull off with their limited resources. While some say that its sequel, 1991's Terminator 2 Judgment Day, is the best of the series, I have to give it up for the grit and terror of the original. It put co-writer and director James Cameron on the map. Number 41, True Lies. James Cameron directs and Arnold Schwarzenegger stars in this robust action comedy about a secret agent, Schwarzenegger, who's out to save the world from terrorists, while his family thinks he's a boring computer salesman. While the film's three acts don't mesh together 100%, this is still one of the better movies I've seen. Of course, the supersized action scenes are the real reason to watch, but don't discount the humor or the charisma of its Austrian-American star. True Lies is simply one of the best films of Arnold Schwarzenegger's prolific career. Number 40, The Expendables 2. Boasting one of the most eye-popping casts ever assembled for a straight action movie, or any movie period for that matter, The Expendables 2 is about a team of heroic mercenaries who fight to prevent weapons-grade plutonium from falling into the hands of a rival gang of soldiers of fortune. This sequel is a bit better than the original 2010's The Expendables, partially thanks to less shaky cam during the action scenes. The aforementioned action scenes are astounding, and the cast is used wisely. From the get-go, this is a no-holds-barred, run-and-gun joy, wasting no time getting the audience pumped up. It truly is the best of the Expendables flicks so far, although the other two are great actioners as well. Number 39, The Big Red One. Written and directed by Samuel Fuller, this World War II combat picture follows around a squad of American soldiers belonging to the 1st Infantry Division, as they battle their way through the North African, Italian, and Western fronts of that conflict. Watching The Big Red One, you're never far from an action scene or a semi-surreal scene illustrating the insanity of war. The characters all make an impression, and the heart-tugging finale works. The Big Red One isn't quite perfect, thanks to its relatively low budget that makes some sequences look like they were made on the cheap. As of right now, I personally prefer the shorter 2-hour theatrical cut of the film, thanks to its breakneck pacing. That being said, who knows? I might end up enjoying the longer, nearly 3-hour reconstruction cut of this movie more in the future. Number 38, The Untouchables. During the height of Prohibition, a team of cops is assigned to take down the crime empire of gangster Al Capone, played by Robert De Niro. The Untouchables is an interesting product, taking a pulpy, heightened, accessible approach to its subject matter, yet also being artistically distinguished. It has moments to make the average Joe pump his fist in the air, but also has the top drawer cinematography and soaring, brilliant music from Ennio Morricone here that critics salivate over. This mob movie classic features some breathtaking action sequences and well-drawn characters that you'll remember after the film is over. It's a glorious-looking flick directed by Brian De Palma, one that you should rent if you haven't seen already. Number 37, Pirates of the Caribbean, The Curse of the Black Pearl. This highly memorable action-adventure movie does for its generation what 1938's The Adventures of Robin Hood did for its generation. In this comedic swashbuckling blockbuster film, a blacksmith played by Orlando Bloom and a former pirate captain played by Johnny Depp join forces to rescue a woman played by Keira Knightley who's been kidnapped by a group of high-seas brigands. From its incredible action scenes to its tasteful fantasy elements, from its energetic Klaus Baldet musical score to its world-famous characters, the first Pirates of the Caribbean flick is an instant classic that has thrilled countless people. Number 36, Hard Boiled. John Woo directs this awesome shoot-'em-up actioner starring Chow Yun-fat as a two-fisted Hong Kong cop who fights to take down a bloodthirsty gang of gun runners. Hard Boiled is all about its gratuitous quantity of action, with fantastically choreographed shootouts taking place in a tea house, a warehouse, a dock, and a hospital. This flick is strictly for action junkies only. The somewhat cliched plot barely even registers thanks to the incessant barrage of bullets Woo throws at the audience. Fans of cinematic gunplay will love it, but everybody else need not apply. Number 35, Farewell to the King. This World War II movie, written and directed by John Milius, stars Nick Nolte as an American soldier in the Pacific Theater who goes AWOL to become the leader of a tribe of natives in the jungles of Borneo. I'm not sure that I'd consider this a realistic action-adventure movie, but it's certainly an entertaining one. The action scenes are very good, and the Basil Poldori's musical score is nothing short of majestic. But the real reason to watch is for the drama. Farewell to the King contains a few scenes that will have the manliest of men fighting back tears. It's just that good. Number 34, Snakes on a Plane. The title of Snakes on a Plane tells you just about everything you need to know about it. With a title like that, you know you're going to be in for a ridiculous and campy ride. Needless to say, the plot is about a slew of serpents that get smuggled aboard an airliner and are unleashed on the unsuspecting passengers. Samuel L. Jackson is charismatic as ever here, but it's the zany sense of humor that steals the show. Just about everything about Snakes on a Plane will make you laugh. Like 1980s Airplane, it plays out like a spoof of 70s disaster movies. The lines are great too, especially, well, I think you already know the line of dialogue I'm referring to. Number 33, RoboCop. A Detroit police officer, played by Peter Weller, is savagely murdered by a gang of super crooks and is brought back to life as a crime-fighting machine. Directed by Paul Verhoeven, this sci-fi movie works both as a straight action picture and as a razor-sharp satire. You might be surprised at just how intentionally funny it is. It may have a kitsch title, but RoboCop sure isn't dumb. This film has a very quotable screenplay, and Kurtwood Smith really gets to shine as criminal ringleader Clarence J. Boddicker. It's an intelligently crafted, to-the-point actioner with lots of explosions and gunplay, but it also has a brain. Don't forget about the awe-inspiring musical theme by Basil Poldori's. Number 32, The Fugitive. Directed by Andrew Davis, this action thriller tells the story of a Chicago doctor, played by Harrison Ford, who was wrongly convicted of murdering his wife, played by Sela Ward, and escapes from police custody to find the true killer. This taut film really takes me to my happy place. Action, in the form of chases, evasions, and fistfights, is common, and Tommy Lee Jones is amazing as the U.S. Marshal hunting down Ford. The Fugitive is all-around great stuff. And the best scene just might be the thrilling bus crash sequence. If you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. so check out this classy action flick if you haven't seen it before. Number 31, District 9. Aliens have landed on Earth and are residing in a South African slum. One day, humans decide to evict them, and a bureaucrat, played by Sharlto Copley, is assigned to help with the mission. District 9 starts off in a cinema verite style before transforming into a more conventional sci-fi action blockbuster. Maybe conventional isn't the right word, because there's little normal about the instant classic that is District 9. High-powered, gory action and social commentary are the names of the game here, and the drama works surprisingly well too. Very fast-paced and full of surprises, District 9 swings for the fences and scores a home run. Number 30, Kelly's Heroes. This World War II comedy features a platoon of American soldiers who go behind Nazi lines in France to rob a bank holding $16 million worth of gold bricks. Sure, it's a comedy, but it also has a big enough budget to feel like a true wartime epic. The star-studded cast is a joy to watch, and the action scenes are pretty fantastic. Lalo Schifrin's musical score is catchy and is a highlight of the movie. It's a fairly cynical movie, with soldiers feeling the need to do some looting in order to feel like they're getting something out of the war. Still, it's a very light-hearted film, making it one of those rare few flicks that manages to be both anti-war and somewhat cheerful at the same time. Number 29, Zulu. This war epic is based on the true story of the Battle of Rorke's Drift during the 1879 Anglo-Zulu War, where an outpost of British soldiers was besieged by several thousand Zulu warriors. Zulu is one sweet movie with terrific combat scenes and great characters that you really get to know before the bullets and spears start flying. John Barry's exemplary musical score is thunderous, and the cinematography does a first-rate job capturing the southern African savannah. The actual battle was notable for its feats of heroism, and the film captures these remarkably well, with several moments that will almost have you jumping off the couch cheering for the characters on screen. One of the flaws with this movie is that the violence sometimes looks pretty fake, but the good undoubtedly outweighs the bad, and Zulu is a must-watch. Number 28, Marked for Death. Steven Seagal dishes out the punishment like only he can in this action about an ex-DEA agent, Seagal, who is marked for death by Jamaican drug dealers. It's as kitschy as it sounds, with the sensei beating up tons of people on his quest for justice. Corny as it is, Marked for Death still has some killer action sequences that show off Seagal's trademark brutality. Okay, this one is strictly for lovers of so bad it's good cinema. However, if you love those types of movies, you'll have a field day with this one, which is the best flick of Seagal's career. Well, at least of the ones I've seen, and I've seen a lot of them. So sit back and watch the bone-snapping fun. This film even knows not to overstay its welcome. Number 27, Revenge of the Ninja. This trashy 80s ninja flick has a pretty simple plot. A Japanese man, played by Sho Kazuki, has his ninja problems travel with him when he moves to the United States. And that, basically sums up everything you need to know. It's definitely not a good movie in the traditional sense of the term. In fact, it better fits in with the so bad it's good crowd. As cheesy as the whole thing is, it actually has some very competent action scenes. The bizarre ninja gadgets are pretty funny though. One of the highlights of the movie is a hysterical fight the main character has with some village people looking goons on a playground. I have not seen an 80s ninja film more joyously entertaining than this one. Number 26, The Dark Knight Rises. The third film in director Christopher Nolan's Batman trilogy, The Dark Knight Rises, isn't exactly the best made of that series. However, it is the most entertaining. While 2005's Batman Begins was an origin story, and 2008's The Dark Knight was a crime thriller featuring a superhero, The Dark Knight Rises really gives a chance to spread its superhero genre wings and fly. In this picture, Batman, played by Christian Bale, must fight to prevent Gotham City from being taken over by terrorist Bane, played by Tom Hardy. The stakes are higher than ever, and all hope seems lost as our group of heroes takes on seemingly unsurmountable odds. With its dark and oppressive atmosphere, The Dark Knight Rises is stirring stuff, even if it pulls a few punches towards the end. Still, it's an impressive and fitting finale to the trilogy. Number 25, Army of Darkness. A chainsaw-handed smart aleck, played by Bruce Campbell, is transported back in time to the Middle Ages, where he must fight an army of the undead to return home. In this quirky cult classic, directed by Sam Raimi. Running about 80 minutes, not a second is wasted in this action-filled horror comedy. The pre-CGI special effects are as charming as all get out, and the humor is laugh-out-loud funny. The final battle for control of the castle against hordes of skeletons is a real showstopper. The recklessly fast pacing is just the icing on the cake. Movie! Number 24, Death Wish 4, The Crackdown. The fourth installment in the Death Wish franchise is a riot. Directed by J. Lee Thompson, architect turned vigilante Paul Kersey, played by Charles Bronson, wages war on the drug cartels of Los Angeles, taking no prisoners in the process. Don't take it seriously and you'll have a great time. Excellent action set pieces abound as Bronson unleashes his fury on the criminal underworld. The plot basically comes to a standstill to allow him to kill a bunch of thugs. Normally this might be a problem, but Death Wish 4 pulls it off. It's all crazy schlock, so be prepared to laugh. Number 23, Taken. This action thriller reinvented Liam Neeson as a hardcore action star. Neeson plays Brian Mills, a former Special Forces operative whose daughter, played by Maggie Grace, is kidnapped and sold into sexual slavery while visiting Paris. Naturally, Mills springs into action and decimates anybody foolish enough to stand in his way. Neeson convincingly brings home the righteous rage of a father out to rescue his daughter from a fate worse than death. The opening of Taken efficiently tells us everything the audience needs to know before throwing the characters off the deep end. After that, the film is a series of non-stop brutal action scenes that are excellently staged. It feels like a love letter to action movie fans from action movie fans. Make sure you watch the unrated cut. Number 22, Drunken Master 2, The Legend of Drunken Master. 1978's Drunken Master is a swell movie, but on this list, we're only about the best of the best. And its sequel, Drunken Master 2, The Legend of Drunken Master, fits that bill. Jackie Chan stars as Wong Fei Hung, a Chinese martial artist who dishes out punishment to those trying to steal Chinese artifacts. This action comedy has expertly choreographed fight scenes and a decent enough plot to keep your mind from wandering in between melees. If top-notch kung fu is what you're looking for, you've come to the right place. This film features one-on-one fights, as well as brawls against a multitude of foes. Chan's character apparently gets his strength from alcohol, so expect plenty of drinking. Number 21, the original Rambo trilogy. One of the most famous names in action cinema is, of course, John Rambo, a character played by Sylvester Stallone. With 4 films featuring this character, I decided to place the original 80s trilogy in this spot. I still love the 4th movie, 2008's Rambo, but I don't think it's quite as good as the first 3. But that's just me. This trio of flicks feature He-Man heroics and famously over-the-top yet magnificently staged action scenes. Jerry Goldsmith's musical scores also work wonders. My favorite of the 3 is 1988's Rambo 3, which has Rambo traveling to Soviet-occupied Afghanistan to rescue his former commanding officer, played by Richard Crenna, who's been captured by the communists there. It's a pumped-up, high-octane shoot-'em-up that's bound to entertain the living daylights out of those who don't expect realism from their action pictures. My second favorite Rambo flick is 1982's First Blood, where Rambo is harassed by small-town cops and has to take to the hills to survive. It's by far the most grounded of the franchise, looking downright realistic in comparison to the rest of the series. It works very, very well as an action drama. Next up is 1985's Rambo First Blood Part 2, where our hero goes to Vietnam to rescue American POWs left there after the end of the Vietnam War. It features all the run-and-gun antics you desire and has a stunning helicopter rampage scene. Number 20, Bonnie and Clyde. This biography of Great Depression-era outlaws and lovers Bonnie Parker, played by Faye Dunaway, and Clyde Barrow, played by Warren Beatty, helps break down barriers for cinema and remains a great piece of entertainment today. Time has not dimmed any of its zestiness or liveliness. Carefully juggling action, drama, romance, comedy, and suspense, Bonnie and Clyde has a little something for most audiences. With very good action scenes and memorable characters, this is a classic that earns its reputation. Its graphic violence and sexual undercurrents helped tear down the old production code, which dictated what content could and couldn't be put in an American movie. In the code's place came the MPAA rating system. Talk about a film that left an impact. Number 19, A Fistful of Dollars. Directed by Sergio Leone, this is the hypnotic first entry into the Man with No Name trilogy, starring Clint Eastwood as the nameless main character, who is sometimes called Joe here. In this action-packed western, the Man with No Name arrives in a Mexican border town controlled by 2 rival crime families and decides to drive both of them out, while hopefully making some cash on the side. It's not the first spaghetti western or Italian-made western ever made, but it's the first one that mattered. From Ennio Morricone's enchanting musical score to the ahead of its time direction and cinematography, A Fistful of Dollars is a really cool film that just works. It's pretty short by the standard of Leone's movies, packing a lot of content in just a little over an hour and a half. It should be noted that this is an unofficial remake of a 1961 Japanese samurai film called Yojimbo. Many prefer that flick, but I think A Fistful of Dollars is leagues beyond it. Number 18, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Easily one of the most beloved movies of all time, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly is one of those classics where you can readily see why it appeals to so many people. Sergio Leone also directs this titanic western about three gunslingers racing against each other across the American Civil War-torn West to find a treasure of hidden gold. Clint Eastwood plays the man with no name, or Blondie, the good of the title. Lee Van Cleef is Angel Eyes, the bad, and Eli Wallach is Tuco, the ugly. The cinematography is stunning, and the whole thing is wrapped in this stylish sense of cool that makes it impossible not to love. Ennio Morricone's brilliant musical score is rightfully iconic, and the film has a sense of humor too. Succeeding as both art and entertainment, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly is the kind of movie both a pretentious film critic and an average Joe can both watch and both end up getting it. Don't miss the three-way showdown at the end for the world. This is the third film in the Man with No Name trilogy, with 1964's A Fistful of Dollars being the first. I also love 1965's For a Few Dollars More, but not quite enough for it to make the list. Number 17, Gettysburg. During the American Civil War, Confederate forces from the South, led by Robert E. Lee, played by Martin Sheen, invaded the North, doing battle with the Union Army at the Battle of Gettysburg in 1863. This is that story, told from both sides. Now, Gettysburg is a very, very long movie, running over 4 hours, but trust me, it's worth it. This cinematic epic carefully takes its time, introducing all of its wonderfully well-drawn characters before throwing them into the heat of combat. The battle scenes are stupendous and lengthy, focusing on the first day confrontation of the battle, the defense of Little Round Top, and Pickett's Charge. Randy Edelman's delightful musical score greatly heightens the drama, and the starry cast does its job appropriately. It's a powerhouse war movie, delivering the goods for audiences who dare to take on its 4+ hour runtime. Number 16, Police Story. Starring and co-directed by Jackie Chan, I'm going to go out on a limb and say that Police Story is the best martial arts movie I've ever seen. The elaborate fight scenes are jaw-dropping, and the painful-looking stunts are mesmerizing. Chan and the rest of the filmmakers really went all out with this one. The shopping mall brawl at the end is insane. Whoa! I almost forgot about the plot, which is about Chan protecting a woman played by Bridget Lin, who's going to testify against the Hong Kong mob. It's nothing special, but it does just enough to keep your attention in between smackdowns. The Police Story features a lot of silly comedy, which sometimes doesn't mesh well with the somewhat rough and hard-hitting kung fu scenes, but it's easily forgiven, considering how well executed the action scenes are. Number 15, The Killer. Here's a movie that fires on all cylinders on both the action and drama fronts. This John Woo-directed shoot-'em-up flick is about a virtuous Hong Kong hitman played by Chow Yun-fat who goes on one last mission to pay for eye surgery for a woman played by Sally Ya, who he accidentally blinded. This right here is the best Woo film I've seen. The shootout sequences are intricate and absurdly well choreographed. However, there's more to this movie's appeal than its massive body count. It's a staggering human drama that emotionally moves you as it excites you with its high-octane action. This combination makes The Killer one of the most potent films on this list. Number 14, The Magnificent Seven. 7 gunslingers travel south of the border to Mexico to protect a defenseless village there from a gang of bandits led by Calvara, who's played by Eli Wallach, in this brilliant Western film directed by John Sturges. Here it is, a Wilsonian action-adventure flick about standing up for human rights and human dignity regardless of where said humans are located on the globe. With his rip-roaring shootouts, outstanding characters, all-star cast, and pummeling musical score from Elmer Bernstein, The Magnificent Seven is a real winner. It really upped the ante at the time for what should be included in a great action movie. The 2016 remake of the same title is a very good movie too, but I think that the original belongs here because it has a more iconic cast and lacks the unnecessary revenge angle of the newer one. Number 13, The Great Escape. Also directed by John Sturges, this is the true story of how Allied POWs broke out of Nazi prison camp Stalag Luft III during World War II. Now, before we go any further, I should point out that I don't really consider this an action film, but a lot of people do, and I love it, so I decided to include it. Along with 1942's Casablanca, The Great Escape is one of those movies you see a picture of in the dictionary when you look up the term classic film. It's timeless. Everything about this picture works. The cast, characters, cinematography, action, pacing, humor, sets, atmosphere, music, done by Elmer Bernstein, suspense, and drama are all excellent. What more could you possibly ask for? The Great Escape really captures the sense of fly-by-the-seat-of-your-pants adventure, and that motorcycle pursuit scene involving Steve McQueen is the stuff legends are made of. As I said earlier, this isn't really an action movie, though there is some action in it, but it's just so darn good I couldn't help but include it here. Number 12, Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. The third and final film of the Star Wars prequel trilogy is a fast-paced, action-packed ride that holds the audience's attention as long as they don't think about it too closely. In this installment, Anakin Skywalker, played by Hayden Christensen, is edging closer to the dark side of the Force as the Clone Wars wind down. On the downside, Anakin's character development throughout the movie leaves a lot to be desired. I'm not going to get into any spoilers, though, even though you almost certainly know what I'm talking about. He's also a notably unlikable character for somebody the audience is supposed to sympathize with. As far as braindead spectacle goes, Revenge of the Sith is not easy to beat. The movie covers a ton of ground, perhaps too much for one film, displaying all sorts of creatures, vehicles, and planets. Ian McDiarmid as Palpatine hams things up wonderfully. The entire film, along with the rest of the prequels, has proven easily memeable. No, it's not as good as the original trilogy, which this film feels oddly inconsistent with at times, but I still enjoy it a lot. The action scenes, while CGI heavy, are still a sight to see. The John Williams musical score is unironically outstanding. Flawed? Sure, but I'd still recommend it to certain audiences. Number 11, Death Wish 3. Death Wish 3 is my pick for the best so bad it's good movie of all time. Yeah, it's that laughable. This boneheaded vigilante flick tells the story of architect Paul Kersey, played by Charles Bronson, blowing away scumbags in New York City after his Korean War buddy, Charlie, played by Francis Drake, is mortally wounded by hoodlums. It's ridiculous. The Big Apple here resembles a post-apocalyptic urban wasteland, or Detroit, and serves as a wonderful backdrop for the insanity the film presents. Death Wish 3 is just one unintentionally comedic line after another. The action scenes, particularly the extended final shootout, are simultaneously hilarious and thrilling. Bronson breaks out a huge pistol, a Korean War-era machine gun, and a mail-order rocket launcher to dispose of goons. The musical score is credited to Led Zeppelin guitarist Jimmy Page, and it's a riot as well, sometimes sounding like sound effects from a Mario video game, and sometimes sounding like somebody taking a dump at others. I'd recommend watching the entire Death Wish series. However, if you can only catch one, I direct you to the accidental masterwork that is Death Wish 3. Number 10, The Guns of Navarone. One of the most important of all action-adventure movies, The Guns of Navarone took many of the tropes now familiar with the genre and put them all under one amazing roof. Not only is it important in film history, it's superb entertainment as well. It's worth bringing up that this flick is directed by J. Lee Thompson, who also brought the world 1987's Death Wish 4, The Crackdown. During World War II, a team of Allied commandos is sent on a deadly mission to sabotage two massive Nazi cannons on the Greek island of Navarone. It's completely fictional, with Navarone not even existing in real life. But who cares? To best enjoy The Guns of Navarone, it's best to focus on the very well-developed characters. They really carry the movie and capture the viewer's imagination. The all-out action scenes don't come as frequently as they do in modern action pictures, but they're still excellent when they do arrive, especially the confrontation with the Nazi patrol boat. Dmitry Tiomkin provides the highly exciting musical score, and the special effects, scenery, and cinematography are worth noting as well. This flick intelligently covers some of the moral quandaries one might face in wartime, but also delivers the heroism and larger-than-life action-adventure storytelling that audiences crave, as the characters in the story become modern-day Greek myths. Number 9, the Star Wars films released after Disney bought the franchise. So far, 3 Star Wars films have been released since Disney purchased the franchise. They're not flawless and pretty unnecessary, but man, are they good! Armed with big budgets and high production values, these science fiction thrill rides deliver the goods for Star Wars fans. 2 so far follow the Skywalker family and its allies' adventures after the events in 1983's Star Wars Episode 6, Return of the Jedi, while 1 is set in between the prequel and original trilogies. 2017's Episode 8, The Last Jedi, might be my favorite so far. It takes a lot of storytelling risks, and most of them pay off. 2015 Star Wars Episode 7, The Force Awakens, is my second favorite. It's exactly the shot of adrenaline the long-dormant series needed to get back on its feet again. 2016's Rogue One, A Star Wars Story, tells the story of how the Rebel Alliance stole the Galactic Empire's plans for the Death Star space station, and it's gripping, edge-of-your-seat fantastic. Despite some fan service where these films, particularly The Force Awakens, repeat a bit too many notes from the original trilogy, I still think these movies can stand on their own as grade A pieces of escapism. Number 8. Dillinger. Written and directed by John Milius, this biopic of legendary bank robber John Dillinger, played by Warren Oates, throws historical accuracy out the window in favor of telling the story of the man in a way fitting for a cheap pulp novel. This is not the way events actually took place. It's the way events should have taken place for storytelling purposes. With its top-drawer shootout scenes, highly colorful characters, and breakneck pace, 1973's Dillinger is a real winner. Yeah, it feels a little cheaply made, thanks to its relatively low budget, but the imagination and talent behind it really shines through. It's nothing more than a big slab of pure entertainment. Number 7, The Wind and the Lion. Very, 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 very loosely based on an actual event, The Wind and the Lion tells the tale of an American woman, played by Candice Bergen, and her 2 children, played by Simon Harrison and Polly Gottsman, being kidnapped by Desert Berber rebels in 1904 Morocco. Who plays the leader of the aforementioned Berber raiders? Well, Sean Connery, of course. This is another action flick written and directed by John Milius. He really excels at this sort of stuff. Almost nothing about The Wind and the Lion resembles what happened in real life, but Milius knows that you can't let the history books get in the way of a good story. The real Perdicaris incident was nothing more than a blip on the radar of history, but that's not what audiences want to see when they visit the movie theater. Instead, we get marvelous action scenes, sweeping desert vistas, humorously depicted geopolitics, larger-than-life characters, a starry cast, and what just might be Jerry Goldsmith's best musical score. The Wind and the Lion is a clever desert action-adventure film with just a dash of romance and lots of disrespect for historical fact. It's an intelligently made epic with plenty of over-the-top heroics and machismo. Watch it! Number 6, Metropolis. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, what's a silent film doing on this list? Well, I can tell you haven't seen Metropolis yet. Okay, it doesn't really become an action-adventure movie until the third act, but it's still one of the very best pictures I've ever seen. It may be silent, but Metropolis is one very loud movie, thanks to its fabulous Gottfried Huppert's musical score and its bombastic visuals. This 1927 landmark sci-fi epic inspired by German Expressionism is a parable of class relations, as tensions reach their breaking point between the upper and working classes in the city of the future. The acting is highly melodramatic by today's standards, but don't let that turn you off. Metropolis is one for the ages. The special effects still hold up, and the characters all jump right off the screen. The action-packed frenzy of a final act is what puts this picture on the list, although the rest of the movie is top of the line as well. For the film's climax, we witness a series of amazing set pieces that concludes with a cathedral-top fistfight that may have inspired the finale for 1989's Batman. Don't look at the plot too closely because, well, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Metropolis is a film that paints in very broad strokes, and if you can get behind that, you'll have your mind blown. Be sure to watch the so-called complete version, which runs 2.5 hours. Number 5, Commando. I hesitate to call Commando a so bad it's good movie because there are moments in it when it seems like the filmmakers are somewhat in on the joke. Still, this movie is a laugh riot and one of the most fun times you'll have watching a motion picture. The story? The daughter, played by Alyssa Milano, of a former Special Forces commando, played by Arnold Schwarzenegger, is kidnapped by a group of mercenaries, and it's up to Arnie to rescue her, killing anybody that stands in his path and delivering some of the best one-liners ever. The whole thing's like a comic strip come to life, with the massive John Matrix, Schwarzenegger's character, performing absurd feats of heroism and eliminating countless faceless baddies. It's pure camp, with the highly memorable villain, Bennett, played by Vernon Wells, hamming it up to an unsafe degree. Everything about Commando is heightened. Remarkably fast-paced, there's never a dull moment in this movie. The action scenes rank among the best ever. I think I temporarily go insane from the adrenaline rush that the final shootout gives me every time I watch it. It's terrific. The characters are all cartoonish, yet interesting, with the viewer wanting to know more about each and every one of them. Of course, no review of Commando would be complete without mentioning the ludicrous song, "We Fight for Love," by the power station that plays over the end credits. Number 4. Duck, You Sucker. Directed by Sergio Leone, this genre-busting wartime western is about a Mexican bandit, played by Rod Steiger, and an Irish bomber, played by James Coburn, who team up to rob the Mesa Verde Bank, but end up involved neck-deep in the Mexican Revolution. It's a tragicomic dramedy with lots of top-notch explosions and an apocalyptic body count. Duck, You Sucker, also known as A Fistful of Dynamite, is riveting entertainment. Thanks to gorgeous cinematography and what just might be Ennio Morricone's best musical score, every frame of this film is electric. Featuring both heart-rending drama and goofy humor, this picture could be considered Leone's forgotten masterpiece. It's a highly political and deeply affecting work of art, saying a lot about the nature of revolutions. They're chaotic, violent, unpredictable, and given the behavior of the Mexican government in this film, perhaps even sometimes necessary. It's a muddled message for sure, but this incoherency still makes for a wonderful movie. Some people say the moral of Duck, You Sucker's story is to stay out of political matters completely. I'm not sure that that's what Leone had in mind, but this film does highlight the horrors of politically motivated violence and serves as a cautionary tale. Fascinating stuff. Make sure to watch the 2.5-hour version. Number 3. The original Star Wars trilogy. Yeah, you knew the original Star Wars films had to be on this list somewhere. Oh my gosh, what can be said about these earth-shaking classics that hasn't been said already? It's a time of galaxy-wide civil war, and a band of freedom fighters, known as the Rebel Alliance, are battling to take down the tyrannical galactic empire. These movies are phenomenal, and are many people's gateway films to the wider world of action pictures. John Williams' musical scores for this trilogy of masterpieces are probably the best ever composed. The action sequences are nothing short of excellent, and the vibrant, lively characters will be forever endeared to you. The special effects, even in the superior theatrical non-special edition releases, are show-stopping, but it's the aforementioned characters that keep you coming back for more. The world building is exquisite. It's impossible not to have your imagination captured by what you're watching. 1977 Star Wars Episode 4 A New Hope is my favorite of the bunch. It just feels like a pulpy action-adventure fairy tale set in outer space. An unlikely hero is called upon to rescue a princess from an evil king's castle. In other words, it has the same plot as your typical Mario video game. 1983's Star Wars Episode 6 Return of the Jedi is my second favorite, primarily due to its cathartic conclusion to the trilogy. Yeah, many people aren't big fans of the Ewoks. Basically a bunch of outer space teddy bears fighting the Empire in a pitched battle, but I think Return of the Jedi's pros vastly outweigh its cons. While often considered the best of the three, 1980's Star Wars Episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back, is actually my least favorite. Don't get me wrong, I still love the heck out of it, but it's the middle child storytelling-wise, being neither the immersive introduction nor the spine-tingling grand finale. Number 2, Rough Riders. Here's a war film that gets just about everything right entertainment-wise. Co-written and directed by the great John Milius, this two-part made-for-TV movie follows around Theodore Roosevelt, played by Tom Berenger, as he leads a group of American volunteer dismounted cavalry into battle during 1898's Spanish-American War. As one watches this top-tier flick, they will witness the recruitment and training of soldiers before they eventually venture forth into combat. It's a familiar formula, but for my money, I don't think it's ever been done better. It's like watching the United States' national coming-of-age story. The Spanish-American War was, after all, the moment when the United States finally asserted itself as a great power on the world stage. While there are several historical inaccuracies, the film shows German military advisors aiding the Spanish, something that didn't happen in real life, for example, and it doesn't have the grisly realism or heart-wrenching human drama of some other war movies. Rough Riders excels at everything else. The all-star cast plays a host of impossibly colorful and vivid characters, and the musical score by Peter and Elmer Bernstein burns down the house. The lengthy battle scenes are sublime. On one hand, you'll never want them to end due to their meticulous staging and high excitement value. On the other hand, you'll want them to end immediately so no more of your favorite characters will end up dead. Such a wonderful paradox. Rough Riders holds a special place in my heart because it, along with my rediscovery of the Indiana Jones films, caused me to become a film buff. I was blown away by what I saw when I first viewed this hidden gem and instantly knew that I must seek out other great films just waiting for me to watch. Number 1. The original Indiana Jones trilogy. Here they are, the best action films of all time. Yes, it's Indiana Jones. For the first place entry on this list, I've decided to bundle together the monumental 3 pictures of the original Indiana Jones trilogy. 1981's Raiders of the Lost Ark, 1984's Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, and 1989's Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. This trio of movies features the coolest fictional character of all time, Dr. Henry Jones Jr., better known as Indiana Jones or simply Indy. Needless to say, he's played by Harrison Ford. Follow this iconic archaeologist as he battles the forces of darkness in a series of ultra-pulpy, globe-trotting adventures in order to acquire supernatural artifacts before the baddies can. These movies are simply the best. Steven Spielberg directs all 3, and he gives it his all. Harrison Ford is cooler than ever, and the John Williams musical scores are nothing short of brilliant, and the action scenes are darn near perfect, with transcendent choreography, cinematography, tempo, sound effects, suspense, editing, music, and special effects. If I were to rank these flicks, I'd go in descending order by release date. Raiders of the Lost Ark is, in my opinion, the greatest film ever released. It's certainly my favorite, at least. Here, Indiana Jones is on a mission to find the Ark of the Covenant, the gold box rumored to contain the original 10 Commandments, before Nazi Germany does. It's thrilling, face-melting entertainment that puts a big dumb smile on my face. If you don't like Raiders of the Lost Ark, I simply don't trust you. Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom is Indy's darkest adventure, with our all-too-human protagonist battling against a revival of the thuggy cult deep in the jungles of India. It's a tad too off the deep end for many viewers, but I find it a rampaging roller coaster of excitement. Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade has our hero teaming up with his father, played by Sean Connery, to hunt down the Holy Grail before the Nazis can. I love this movie a ton, but it does repeat a bit too many notes from Raiders to overtake Temple of Doom in the rankings. Still, it's a laugh riot, and it's the first indie film that could be considered a full-on action comedy. To make a long story short, if you love action movies but haven't seen the original 3 Indiana Jones motion pictures yet, what are you waiting for? Well, that's the list of my top 50 favorite action films of all time. I know that your list looks very different, so if you want, post it in the comments below. My taste may change with time and as I watch movies I haven't seen before. Maybe I'll post update videos for this list as the rankings change and new films make the cut. Maybe. This video was made using my computer's voice recorder feature, which explains the low sound quality and whatnot. I think I read somewhere on the internet that this program only allows you to record a minute at a time, which explains why I talked in a very rushed manner for some of the reviews. As it turns out, you can, in fact, record over a minute with it, so I began to chill out a bit as the recording process went on. Yes, I know I have some enunciation issues and speak like a hurried idiot during parts of the video, but I hope you understand. Thank you for watching.